Assalamu alaikum. In the hustle and bustle of our present economic situation, there is no doubt that many of us find ourselves burdened by debt. But today, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, we'll learn some authentic beneficial dua to settle debt or to pay off debt. Before we discuss the dua to settle debt, we as Muslims should be conscious of acquiring so much debt, because debt can weigh heavily on the heart, disrupting peace and causing anxiety. Debt can feel like an overwhelming shadow, weighing heavily on one's heart and stealing one's peace of mind. It can disrupt someone from sleeping very well, affect relationships, and make every bit of life feel like a mountain. So while going into debt, you see, the issue of debt is a struggle that many of us face. But as Muslims, we are blessed with the guidance and the comfort words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we find ourselves burdened or in a situation like this, it is essential we turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with sincere du'as and utilizing the recommended dua by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the dua to settle debt. It can offer us the relief we seek and making us to settle the debt at hand. If you are watching this video, there are chances that you want to settle the debt you owe some people, but worry less now. Take a deep breath. You are not alone. And the best news is that your relief is near. Because here I'll be teaching you the dua, the supplication, the recommended dua by the Prophet ﷺ to pay off debt. And pray to them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to settle your debt. But before that, let's talk about the gravity of debt in Islam. Debt in Islam goes beyond mere financial transactions. It entails a moral obligation to repay what is owed, either monetary or goods. The Quran and Hadith discuss the seriousness of debt. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Quran chapter 2, Surah al-Baqarah, verse 282. This verse is the longest verse in the Quran. It emphasizes the importance of documenting debt to ensure clarity and fulfillment of obligation, to avoid anyone harming the other, that is, the debtor and the owner. It is encouraged to document it for later reference, so that the debtor will easily remember to repay it. The issue of debt wasn't taken with levity by the Prophet ﷺ when he once refused to perform the janaza prayer for a man who had unpaid debt. He only agreed after someone stepped forward to assume responsibility for clearing the debt. The Prophet ﷺ said, "The soul of a believer remains suspended from entering paradise, Jannah, by debt until it is paid off on his behalf." Debt is something we shouldn't have on our hands before debt, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will collect the right of the debt for him back on the day of accountability from the good deeds, except the owner forgives one in this world. Therefore, we should strive to seek Allah's help through the recommended dua to pay off the debt, while making effort to settle it by working. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Whoever takes people's wealth with the intention of repaying it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help him repay it. But whoever takes it intending to waste it, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will destroy him." So for this reason, when we seek Allah's assistance to repay a debt, Allah will surely help you to repay it. As long as you yourself making efforts to repay it, Allah will help you repay it. Without further ado, let me list just two simple du'as and powerful du'as to pay off debt from the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The first du'a is Allahumma kfini bihalalik an haramik waghnini bifadlika amman siwak. Allahumma kfini bihalalik an haramik waghnini bifadlika amman siwak. This dua to pay off debt was recommended by Ali ibn Abi Talib, may Allah be pleased with him, to another man in debt, based on what the Prophet ﷺ taught them to say when in debt. So the dua is Allahumma kfini bihalalik an haramik waghnini bifadlika amman siwak. What is the meaning of this dua? It means, "Oh Allah, suffice me with what you have allowed instead of what you have forbidden, and make me independent of all others beside you." The number two of the dua is another powerful dua to pay off debt, which is Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-hazan wal-ajzi wal-kasal wal-jubni wal-bukhul wa min dala'i ad-dayni wa ghalabati ar-rijal. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-hazan wal-ajzi wal-kasal wal-jubni wal-bukhul wa min dala'i ad-dayni وغلبة الرجال. Repeat it after me. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من الهم والحزن والعجز والكسل والجبن والبخل ومن ضلع الدين وغلبة الرجال. The meaning of this dua is very powerful. Now listen to the meaning. It means, "O Allah, I seek refuge in you from anxiety, sorrow, weakness, laziness, miserliness, cowardice, and the burden of debt, and from being overpowered by men." You see, these two du'as mentioned are powerful du'as to pay off debt. When you seek Allah's help through these recommended du'as, Allah will help you pay off your debt and you'll be free from burdens. You'll be free from debts. You can find these du'as in the Dminder app, which you can download from Google Play Store or App Store. After downloading it, just search dua to settle debt or dua to pay off debt. You will see related du'as to pay off debt in the app. The du'as are recommended and taught by the Prophet ﷺ, and we should always make use of them in seeking Allah's relief from debt. You see, debt is one of the things that can make someone to start misbehaving. As said by the Prophet ﷺ, he said, if a person is in debt, he tells lies when he speaks and break promises when he make promise. Subhanallah. In the same hadith, it was reported that Prophet ﷺ used to invoke Allah in prayer, saying, "O Allah, I seek refuge in you from all sins and from being in debt." When our Prophet ﷺ was constantly used to seeking Allah's relief from debt, why wouldn't we? We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for us to settle our debts. For those who are in debt, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy to settle the debt and enrich us in bounty so that we won't be in need of anyone except Him. Assalamu alaikum.